Hello, Gap Nation. I'm Marty Emino, the Director of Operations and Communications for the Association. Welcome to our Gap interview series on Zoom. Got a good day ahead of us. While we all stay safe from the COVID-19 and wait for the return to the golf course, we decided to take a look back at some of the more memorable happenings in recent history here with the Association. So today we're going to start with the epic 2016 BMW Philadelphia Amateur Championship Final at Merion Golf Club between Michael McDermott and Jeff Osberg. Well, let's first welcome everybody to the call. We have Dan Schofield, the Assistant Director of Communications with GAP. Tony Regina, also an Assistant Communications Director with GAP. And obviously, Michael and Jeff. So guys, let's just start out with a simple question here. What's a day in the life been for you two with this pandemic affecting everybody? Michael?
Jeff, I'll start. Yeah, so for me, I joked recently that my calendar outside of work, it says breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And other than that, we're just trying to fill the day. But you know, we fortunately, my family, my friends, the people closest to me have all, have sort of sidestepped any health issues through this. So for that, my parents got out of Florida and got home. So really just grateful to that. And the rest of life is, it's certainly a detour right now. It's a very strange time, but fortunately, the days they're passing, and hopefully it's temporary. And overall we're doing fine though.
It's been a long time since I felt like I had this much free time on my calendar, and really makes me wonder what I do with all my time when I have it. But it's like Michael said, it's trying to get from breakfast to lunch, lunch to dinner with the kids, get them to bed, and start it all over again the next day. Luckily, my wife is definitely bearing more of the brunt of being at home with 3 young children all day, every day. You just pray for nice weather so you can get outside a little bit and do something. But it's definitely been tough, but thankfully everybody's safe, everybody's healthy, and, hopefully at some point in time, looking forward to getting back out in the real world.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Getting back to a GAP schedule would be nice. Hey, so let's we get together as most people viewing this would know. We've started that GAP decade, top moments of the decade, which you guys matched, advanced into round 2. But let's just talk about that final for a little bit. What do you guys remember most about that? Jeff, we'll start with you. What do you remember most about that final match with Michael?
God, well, it's hard not to remember the chip. I've seen it, 550,000 times. Look at his picture there. I don't remember holding a trophy. That's for sure.
My favorite picture. All right, I had to do
that.
But
yeah. For the record, Jeff won the Open at Huntington Valley recently, just for the record.
And won the McDermott Trophy, which always I proudly display that at home. But I have very fond memories of the day. And there was a lot of people out there watching. Michael and I share many mutual friends, besides us being great friends. My wife and my family, the McDermotts, were out there. It was a really special day to be part of. And I think the excitement of having it come down to the 36th hole, it just doesn't happen that often. And everyone getting to crowd around the 18th green at Merion. And, I can remember it like it was yesterday, and you look back at the videos, just the excitement that was surrounding that match. And I think for us to both perform well in it, it just made for something that was extremely memorable. And I think that, people might ask if I was disappointed that I didn't win. Sure, of course, you always play to win, but I can tell you I'd much rather have been part of a match like that and come out on the wrong end of it than be a part of a few ones that, weren't nearly as exciting and maybe have won. So for me, I still look back on that as one of the best days of my life in terms of competitive golf.
Yeah, well, that's nice to say, Jeff. I think the thing that I would say, which probably wouldn't be the response that people would expect, is that in the days, we get 2 days between the semis or 1 full day between the semis and the final match. I went into that match literally terrified, and terrified because I considered myself a major underdog. And I don't think that most people would necessarily think that, right? I mean, I'm at my home course, and whatever final 3 or 4 finals, 4th final, I guess, for me. So it seems like I would have come in and felt like, okay, I got a good chance to win. But I truly put my chance of winning 10 or 20% on that. And you know, I just felt like that week, Jeff was just clearly the better player. We played in the qualifying rounds. So I saw it firsthand. I saw how he was beating his competitors. I was winning all my matches on the 20th hole. If you look at the brackets, that's actually true. So for me, one of the real memories was like utter terror, looking forward to the match, because I really felt that if I played the way I'd been playing in a couple of the other matches, that I was setting myself up, and Jeff played the way he was playing, you know, there could have been a sort of a 7-6, 8-7 loss for me on my home course. So, you know, I had sort of an emergency session at the range the night before with my brother, and, you know, literally we were pulling out all the stops. So I have to say, like, and the net result of that was, you know, I did sort of bring my A game that day, and so did Jeff, and that's what made the day so great. But I think, you know, the part that people probably wouldn't realize is like that the underdog won that day. Even though I used every bit of my home course advantage, I used every bit of the game that I could find that day, but it still took me coming back from 2 down 4 to play to make it happen. You know, Jeff just, it just was a great day. But I think me feeling as the underdog was something that not many people would realize.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, Michael, you had mentioned opponents who you got by prior to the final, and yes, you had a match with Cole Berman, the reigning amateur champion that year, that went down to 20 holes. And Jeff, on your side of the bracket, you had to play Ben Feld as well as Gregor Orlando, two players who are certainly accomplished in gap circles and past major winners as well. What would you guys cite as the most difficult match en route to the final that year?
Yeah, you know, for me, if I had to pick the most difficult match, I mean, any gap, any 18-hole match is difficult, right? Because the person who made it at least shot a pretty good score to get there. But I feel like my matches just kept getting more and more difficult that week, partially because I saw Jeff on the other side. And, you know, he and I, just as a side note, he and I played in the qualifying round together. And we had played the year before, unfortunately, in the second round or third round or whatever it was. And we had literally laughed that we need to be in the other bracket this year. We have to be in opposite brackets. So when the brackets came out, we both texted each other instantly and said, we're in opposite brackets. So as the matches went on and he was advancing and I was advancing, there was sort of this sense that, you know, we were just meant to play each other in this match. But all my matches were tough. I mean, I think I went 17 holes, 20 holes, 20 holes, 17 holes in my matches. So, you know, they were all tough. And Cole and I probably had the closest match. It just, I think it was even or one up, one down the entire day. So for me, I think it was Cole's match. But again, I mean, Scott Ehrlich and I went 20 holes. Michael Davis and I went 17. You know, he was a home course guy in the semis that I lost to the year before. So they were all really tough matches. It was no easy ones.
To the final.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I remember right, I think Ben Feld and I went down to the 18th hole, which was the 10th hole at Merion. So I think we started on 11, if I remember right. And I remember that match, you know, being very close. And I think I made a really long birdie putt on 10 to win the match or close it out. But I just remember that being a grueling battle. I mean, I know Ben very well, great player. Like Michael said, you know, every match is hard. Everyone deserves to be in those brackets. And, you know, when you're playing head to head in 18 holes, it's just, you know, a few mistakes one way or the other are typically what changes the outcome of a match. So, but, you know, if I remember right, I think Ben was definitely the hardest test of that week up until the finals.
So Michael, in the final, you moved, you were 3 up after the first 18. Did you feel like you were playing great? You said you brought your A game. You know, Jeff, did you feel you weren't playing great, but you were, and Michael was just kind of beating you? What was the thoughts after the first 18 there?
So for me, I played great the first 18. So just as a refresher, I mean, for people that remember that week, Merion, even though they did a redo to fix the conditioning, they had it perfect that week. I mean, I don't think I made a ball mark in the whole final match. It was firm and fast. The rough was up, and they used the Sunday U.S. Open pins. So, you know, this was no normal Merion, right? Even though Marion's not easy on a normal day, this was like the real deal that day. So I think I shot maybe 1 over in the morning, right? And Jeff might have been 3 or 2 over, something like that with match play. So yeah, I played really well, but I was 100% sure that he was going to come out firing in the afternoon, which he did. And from what I remember, he had it even like halfway through the front 9, or before the turn, I think he had it even, which was no surprise. And then of course he took a 2-up lead, so he had me 5 down through 13 or 14 holes in the afternoon. If you look just at that round. So, and I, I might have been a shot or 2 higher, but I think he was probably par 1 under or something going into 14 or 15 on that afternoon round. So it was good golf, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember how unbelievably difficult I thought the course was playing. I didn't think that I played overly poor in the morning. Obviously, 3 down is nobody's goal through 18 holes. Michael really didn't make any mistakes during that. And I think that, I got a little bit more comfortable in the course. You can get a little bit more comfortable being 3 down. It's kind of an easier place to play from as you're teeing off the second 18, knowing that, if I don't try to make a move or, start playing a little bit better here and putting some pressure on them, I'm going to be on the receiving end of some finals that have happened in the past. And I think I was able to kind of focus and come out in the afternoon and hit some really good shots. And I know what it's like to be playing in the lead. And there's probably nothing more difficult in golf than when you see a lead evaporate. And, I think it just shows how tremendous of a competitor he is, that he was able to, to kind of shrug that off and refocus for the last 4 holes. Because like he said, effectively, losing 5 down through the first 13 holes of the second match. I mean, that's a pretty defeated place to be. I've been there before, and it's not easy to recover from that.
Yeah. So the second round obviously went a little different, and I think the highlight was the last 4 holes, as we all talk about here.
I totally agree.
Could you guys maybe from both perspectives give a sense of when that hype started building and what you guys were feeling going across the street to the home stretch there?
Well, I remember. I'll talk about Jeff's. Jeff's great play as he sort of really turned the tide. So he was 1 up through 11. And then I won 12 to even it, and then we both hit it like 8 feet on 13, and I think I was a foot outside of him. I miss, he makes. Okay, 1 down again. We go to 14, and they had the pin in a spot just below the tier where if you go long, you have 0 chance, none. And I hit it from the left up. I hit it sort of right pin high, which was far better place to chip from. It almost gave me like a backstop. And Jeff was deep in that spot that Brad Bradbeer said, he's been a member there for 50 years. He's never seen anyone, when it's fast, get that up and down. Jeff hit a chip to I think it was a gimme, wasn't it, Jeff? I don't think you.
It was close, yeah.
Yeah. So that was so. And then I don't get mine up and down. So then all of a sudden there's that 2-up lead, which if you looked at those holes, I could have made the one on 13. He could have missed, and I actually had the easier up and down. So it's suddenly like I went from thinking, okay, this thing is going to the 18th hole to, I'm now on the 15th tee in total panic mode. And I do believe, Jeff, you hit your tee ball in 15 in the fairway, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, at that point, I am like, we're all the way back. It's a driver. There's OB left, and the right rough is about, this. It's really problematic there. So it's sort of like a do or die drive at that point. If I don't hit the 15th fairway, it's basically over. So that's not one you wish on anybody, is like you have to hit the 15th fairway from all the way back. So, that really was, for me, that even though some other things happened after that, that was the shot of the day, because I know Jeff's making 4, and, I'm already 2 down. And by the way, 4, if not 3. And I'm already 2 down, and if I miss the fairway, the match is over. So, and I was able to hit it, and then, we progressed from there. So,
Jeff, just hop in here for a second. What's your like kind of mentality there? I know you've played a ton of competitive golf. You know, you go from where Michael said, you know, you're kind of coming back on, and then you take the lead, you go 2 up. You know, are you thinking, how far ahead are you thinking, or are you just thinking kind of to that next tee ball when you're in a format like that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think that I do a great job of just kind of staying present. You know, I don't really think too much about it outside of hitting the next shot. You know, I felt kind of very fortunate winning 13 and 14. You know, 13, I think, you know, I putted first, so he hit it inside me. You know, every right, you know, I could have missed, he could have made. And then same thing on 14, he was in a much better position than I was. And I can remember that up and down. And, you know, at the time, I don't think I really realized how, you know, kind of crazy it was. And I heard from a lot of members afterwards, kind of the sentiments that Michael said about, you know, nobody can get that ball up and down from there. And, you know, he kind of, maybe with that shot, you know, he probably felt in a pretty good position seeing where I was compared to where he was there. And, you know, when you walk off that green, you step on the 15th tee at Merion, and there may not be a more terrifying tee shot in the world to have to hit. And, you know, I think I did a really good job of focusing and hit one in the fairway, and that's all I was looking for there. And I thought that was going to put a lot of pressure on him to come up with, you know, what really was a kind of a key moment of the match, was hitting that drive in that tight fairway on 15. And then from there, I remember very vividly what happened on the next few holes.
Right, well, that's the Sergio hole, right? Then he hit 3 of them there in the U.S. Open.
Sergio pumped a few out of bounds there.
Yeah. So, see, I knew you guys were better than Sergio, and you proved it.
Absolutely.
So then let's head up to the green. Jeff, you hit it in there, you know, relatively tight, right? If I remember correctly.
I think I was just off the green. I think I was over the. If I remember right, I was chipping. But maybe I was on the fringe and putting. I don't totally remember.
You were chipping,
right?
But it was a really good spot. Yeah.
And
yeah,
Michael, you were above the hole like 15, 20 feet with a nice slider.
Yeah, slightly above it, more parallel to it. But that green, you know, being pin high there is about a 6 or 8 foot break.
So then did you go first? Do you remember? Did Jeff chip up first?
Yeah, I did. I chipped up first to a gimme. And then, yeah, I was outside of Michael.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So then Michael, obviously, I know you've said it in the video that we've watched a couple times getting ready for this interview. You know, it's a 1 in 10 kind of putt that you make it, and you just kind of had to get it in, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably one of those putts that you make 1 out of 10, you 3-putt it 3 out of 10, and you 2-putt the rest. So I mean, literally 3 times more likely to 3-putt it than 1-putt it. And you know, I think I hit it about as well as I could, but I still would have had 4 or 5 feet, I'm sure, because I mean, it didn't just trickle over the front lip. You know, it went in at the right speed, but there's just no stopping it. So there's a lot of good fortune on that putt. I mean, you have to hit it. It's just there's nothing you can say other than there's a little bit of golf guides on your side when a putt like that goes in, right? There's just nothing. You can't sit there and have any sort of confidence that you'll ever make that putt again. It's just one of those putts. You hit it 6-8 feet left of the hole, like I said. You try to get the pace right, and if it doesn't go in, you hope you don't. You know, you're going to have 4, 5, 6 feet. And it went in, and then all of a sudden it was like, all right, game on.
So next tee shot, you both found the fairway?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. We're right next to each other, I think, Jeff, right?
Yeah.
And then
we were really close to each other.
That's a fun second shot into that green where you really can't see. You can see half of it going up a hill. You know, you got the fescue and the natural terrain there. Just take us through that thought process on that second shot on 16.
So the wind,
yeah,
Jeff, go ahead. Yeah.
No, so the wind was a little bit into us. It was kind of blowing a little, I think, right to left and a little bit into us. Mm-hmm. Pin was kind of right above that ridge. And, I mean, I thought I hit a perfect shot. I mean, I executed on it about as good as I can. I mean, in the air, I thought I absolutely stuffed it. And, the greens were so firm and fast that day. And I came up just a little bit short, hit right into the hill, came back down to the front of the green. At the time, I really didn't know how bad of a place that was to be. I found out trying to navigate that putt. But, you know, I mean, looking back on it, I wish I'd hit it behind the hole, but, you know, I made a decision and, you know, I hit an absolutely perfect golf shot. Just wasn't the right decision, kind of unknowingly.
Yeah. So when I said in the very beginning that I used every last bit of, you know, home course advantage that's needed, I think this is the one part that sticks out to me, is that anybody who knows that green, especially when it gets fast, knows that coming from the front to the back on the putt, it gets lightning fast. So Jeff and I hit the same club. I just hit it harder, especially having seen his ball end up on the front, because I knew that the putt from behind it was far better. Even a chip from behind it is actually better than a putt from the bottom, in my opinion. So I made sure I got behind it, and then it was, you know, it was, I definitely had a full shot advantage. Even though I was 40 feet, it was a rather straightforward lag, and Jeff's putt sort of goes up, but then really runs away from you. And it's hard to see that. And really, you know, now Jeff is going to know it. But at the time, Jeff and John Layton would have literally no way to know how fast that putt was. It just, there's no way to see it. And he did what 90% of people do, which is hit it 10 feet, 12 feet by, if not more, you know, even a little bit more. Yeah.
Jeff, how many times have you played Marion before that? Have you played there quite a bit or not really?
You know, I really hadn't. I mean, obviously that week you get in a lot of golf. I'd maybe played it probably no more than 4 or 5 times before that.
So then, you know, Michael, you win that hole with a par, and then Jeff with the bogey, unfortunately, and then you move into 17. Just talk us through club selection there. I mean, the match is all square. So Jeff, you went from 2 up, unfortunately, to all square in the midst of 2 holes. And Michael, obviously, you're the reverse. You're thinking you're done, and now you're, you know, it's a coin flip, right? 2 holes left, all square. Yeah. So you got the tee there on 17 still. What are you hitting, and what are you thinking?
Yeah. So that day, the green was so firm, and the pin was front left, and I don't want to over exaggerate, but there's probably a 4 to 5 yard area that you could land it in, where it would stay anywhere within 50 feet of the hole. So if you think you have that massive false front, and if you hit into that, it doesn't bounce forward, so it comes back and you have a brutal putt. And if you land, you know, 5 yards over that false front, it will run all the way to the back on a day like today, because we're coming in with 210, 215 yard shots. So it's a really tough club selection. And I think I went with 6 to just try to nuke it and try it, because we had that little area to hit it. And I think I hit probably the best iron that I had, you know, my best iron of the day, especially the circumstances. And it landed, you know, just right of the hole and probably in that 3 or 4 yard area where it could stay. So and I think I hit it really high. So I had one of those putts that, you know, I had like 20 feet, which is, I mean, if you put the tour out there, you know, it was just hard to get it anywhere near that hole that day. So suddenly Jeff, I mean, because I think we hit good shots in the morning, Jeff, and both had 50 footers. It was just no way to get close. So from where I was, I felt really good on the tee now, because even if Jeff hit a great shot, it was just going to be hard to be anywhere near, you know, inside 40 feet.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's what the beauty of match play is, you know, he's got some momentum going. You know, the 17th hole is just extremely brutally tough at Marion. And he steps up there and hits a shot like that, which was, I mean, it was almost impossible to leave the ball where he left it. And I just think it put a tremendous amount of pressure on me to hit a shot there. And, you know, I think that, you know, if I had had the momentum going my way, maybe I would have come up with a better shot. But, you know, given the circumstances of what just happened and him hitting that shot, you know, I wasn't able to execute in a great iron there. Didn't really leave it in a horrible spot, though. I left it in the right bunker, which was really not it was probably better than being, you know, hitting the green pin high and having it go all the way to the back of the green, which I think is where we were in the morning. And we both, I think we both 3-putted it, because it was, I mean, you know, that hole is just impossible. So I really wasn't overly disappointed where I ended up. And I think I hit an okay bunker shot, maybe hit it out to, you know, 10, 50, you know, I think it was inside 10 feet. And just wasn't able to get it up and down. But, you know, looking back on it,
you made the putt.
Yeah,
thought
I mean
you
that
did.
right bunker
Yeah.
was really the best place I could be if I wasn't going to be, kind of where he was, which was absolutely perfect. So you could have come up with a better bunker shot there and gotten up and down, but really on the tee, it was just a tremendous amount of pressure he put on by hitting a shot like that.
60 feet for birdie.
Okay, yeah, I thought you were a little longer.
18.
Okay.
He was kind of on the right. Yeah.
Yeah, I was on the right.
But you were on the green, right, Michael?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yep.
And then Jeff, so you were first to play, I guess, is where we were going with this, and knowing you probably need to at least get it close, or if not, make it to force extra holes.
Oh, definitely. I mean, in my mind, I figured, one, I know how impossible that chip is. I mean, you saw it with when they had the Open there, how many players were struggling keeping the ball on the green. I never really think a match is over because anything can happen. But, in my mind, Michael wasn't going to three-putt in that situation. I really, if I had made it, it could have, but,
yeah, it could happen.
Yeah, right.
So
but
what'd
no,
you pull
I
there?
just,
So is that just a standard kind of pitch shot for you? What's your mentality approaching that chip shot?
I don't really remember. I mean, I remember how difficult it was, and in my mind, I was thinking, just hit a good shot here. At least get it up somewhere close. Make him at least have to two-putt. My thought was, don't hit it off the back of the green where I'm still chipping, and let him, walk out of there, possibly making 5 to win the match. So that was really kind of my whole focus on the chip was just, hit it solid, figure out kind of, where I wanted to crest that hill. And I wasn't really too worried about the fact of, I need to make this, because in my mind, that wasn't really realistic anyway. It was more of just, let's not have the match end here without him really having to hold the ball out.
So how many feet away was the ball when you thought, oh, that might go in the hole?
When it was probably when it crested the hill, I knew it was a good shot. I still wasn't sure how much speed it was going to pick up, whether it was really even going to stay close or not. And as it started kind of tracking down that hill and I was watching it, and you could kind of hear the crowd that was back kind of behind the pin start getting louder. And then it went in, and I don't know what happened after that, but I blacked out, and Michael had already picked the ball up. So I still think it went in, and he fished it out of there too quick. But when it was a few feet away, I was watching it track. In my mind, I'm thinking, "Oh my God, it's in." No, well, we were playing the qualifying rounds, and I forget what hole we were on, but Michael had maybe a chip, or it might have even been a bunker shot. I don't remember. And he either had his caddy 10 the pin or he pulled it. And I said something to him, and he said, here are the pins at Marion. You really can't make it with the pin in. It doesn't go in. And then sure enough, in the second round on the 8th hole, he holes a chip from off the green, with the pin in. And I'm thinking, what the hell is that? The guy's telling me all week can't make it with the pin in. And then he goes and he holes one with the pin in. But, the pin didn't keep mine out. But it just was funny that, he had talked to me earlier in the week about, if you're trying to make it, you should pull the pin out. But it wasn't, it would have lipped out without the pin anyway, because I don't think it touched it at all.
Yeah. And at first, Jeff, we did laugh because we thought it hit the pin. And after the fact, we said, I told you.
No.
But, the thing I have to say about that chip is, we can't say enough how good the chip was. I mean, anybody that knows that, again, watch all the U.S. Open guys in 2013 hit it back there, and it all goes over the green. Once it gets over, there's that ridge. It gets over it. It just goes right off the back. So I'm over there, pin high right, and I have a really long and tough putt. And every part of me is saying, I have 3 putts to win. That's deep down what I'm telling myself. I'm trying not to say that to myself, but that's truly in my heart of hearts what I believe. And then all of a sudden, this chip goes up there, and my heart is like, just dropping. But it was, but again, even the fact that it didn't go in, the fact that he got it up and down, just like totally startled me. I mean, it just, there was an element of shock to me, because I really did expect him. It's one of those chips you either come up 15 feet short because you're trying to get real cute, or you go to the back fringe and have a 15, 18 footer. And there's very, very little in between. And the shot he hit, it's crazy.
And then
So,
that 4-footer probably had to look about 40. I know you kind of regripped, you stepped away once. What's going through your mind there?
I did step away once. It was funny. So I got over it, and it was one of those, like, you just don't want to go another hole with Jeff Osberg, right? You just don't. I mean, you don't want to go one more hole. So the opportunity to, and I say this, if he had the same putt, when you have a chance to win it, you want to try to close it right there. And I was so nervous at that moment. I mean, I really was, more so than almost any competitive golf I can remember in most of my lifetime. At Marion, 18th green, the whole thing, right? My good friend Jeff, who's playing such great golf and everything. And so I got over it, and I was right about to pull the trigger, because I think I stood over for 2 or 3 seconds. And I had this last second thought, and I said, you are literally squeezing this club so tight, you'll never make this putt. And I stepped away, and I said, okay, you're going to, just telling myself, I'm going to keep doing this. I have to get over it, and I have to just pull the putter back. Or every split second, I'm going to grip it tighter and tighter and tighter, because I'm just dying. So the second one, I literally got over it, and I said, stand over it and take the putter back. Just putt it, because if not, you're just gonna yip this thing. You're so nervous right now. So it happened to get online by the grace of God.
Was that a straight one, or was that outside? You didn't have to play that outside the hole, did you?
No, it was dead straight.
Okay.
It was dead straight. It was straight downhill, so it really just had to get going a little bit. And the greens were really good at that moment, so that was it just started online and stayed online. But it was I can't remember being that nervous over a golf shot in my life. That was sort of number one in terms of my nerves.
Regularly, have you talked about or speculated the possibility of perhaps meeting in another amateur final?
I don't ever want to play him ever again.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think we talk about that happening as much as, I think there's a good chance of it happening again. Hopefully this year at Lancaster Country Club, we get to play. I think it's a course that suits both of us well. And I think, Michael, did you win a PA-AM there or something? Did you win a tournament at Lancaster? State AM.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
State AM 20 years ago.
Yeah. So, and I mean, a great venue. I mean, Lancaster Country Club is one of the finest places in Philadelphia. And so, like I said, match play is it's so difficult. It's such a hard format. It's so hard to get to a final. And both of us are going to need a lot of things to go right, for us to ever play in a final again, much less, have both of us meet in it. But, in my mind, I think that our battles are far from done, whether it's, obviously match play in the finals of that draws a lot of excitement, but there's still 3 other majors during the year that I think we're both going to be competitive in.
Yeah, totally agree. And it certainly doesn't get any easier every year though, Tony, right? Because my first GAP final was 20 years ago now, right? So, it doesn't get, it's not, it's not getting easier to make the finals. And I'm a little bit older than Jeff, and I know the same is for him, right? There's young kids coming up, and there's a fitness element to it. And then there's just the law of averages, right? It's just not easy to win 5 matches or 4 matches, I should say, to get to a final. So, both of us are going to be trying, though. I can tell you that.
Yeah, well, guys, again, thanks for taking the time today. Really appreciate it. Kind of walking down memory road a little bit, especially during these times where everybody's trapped inside and has to get back on the golf course, at least memory-wise.